Good evening. I think we're live tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit about Daryl Anka tonight. He's been in the news lately. We're going to be talking a little bit about the theories behind what Diana Pasulka has been talking about. And Whitney Strieber has come out and said he believes in Jesus. We're going to talk a little bit about that. What does that mean for this whole thing that's happening? Don't go nowhere.
The system is totally rigged and broken.
The mail will lead to the termination of the United States and World War III.
The future is gonna be amazing!
U.S. troops were being told that the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran was in preparation for Armageddon and also the return of Jesus.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
Demonstrated will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet.
It is now 85 seconds to midnight. This is the closest the world has ever been to midnight.
I still think these are what people called angels. I'm dying to know what they've got to say.
I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway, but that's a longer discussion.
These entities have the ability to appear in any form.
Welcome to Strange Normal. My name is Bradley. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what is going on. And there's a lot going on, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon, so you're notified when things like this happen. Folks, we got a few things going on tonight, and I want to make sure you understand. We got 35 clips we're going to go over, so there's going to be a lot of really interesting stuff that as you put the pieces together and figure out this mystery that we've been going over for the last 5 years, that's coming to fruition, I believe, in the next couple years here, if not sooner. It's going to be phenomenal what's happening. I want to tell you, though, I have been around the U.S. and around the world. We're going to have another get together, I guess you could say, among our little community here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're on the 21st and 22nd of this month, which is August. We're going to be at the Collegedale Korean SDA Church on the 21st and 22nd. I'm going to be presenting out there for Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and Saturday evening, if that's correct. I think that's correct. But anyway, make sure you don't miss that if you're in this area or if you're nearby. You should stop by. It's going to be fascinating what's going on. This is kind of a hub for this understanding different things that are happening right now. And also, if we disconnect from YouTube someday, we have a backup. Watch.orionmedia.tv. Watch.orionmedia.tv. It's our own personal server, and you can stream from that. Right now, everything is embedded with YouTube, but at the flip of a switch, we can switch over and be still streaming the exact same videos that you love here. So make sure you bookmark that, watch.orionmedia.tv. I'm sure it's going to be on strangenormal.org and Orion Media main website as well, if something does happen. But also, books. This is important. We're just going over some quick preliminaries here. These things, we had a back order, and now we are stocked up with another 50,000 of them. And so if you want free booklets that explain what we talk about on this program, this one's for InReach, this one's for Outreach. It's fully illustrated. It's really an interesting book. I mean, you go through this thing, and it's got everything in here, and it talks about all the research and the state of the dead, understanding this stuff, and it puts it in a way that your neighbors will love and want more of. In fact, every time I hand it out, I get people that come back to me and go, hey, do you have any more of that? Where can I find that? We had that at the America 250, and everyone was actually asking about it, trying to figure out where it came from. So praise God for that. And also, if you have received this, we just sent out a shipment this week. And if you've ordered it, we were back ordered. You should be getting it this week. And we appreciate your donations to help continue doing this, because, printing 50,000 of these at a time is a lot of money, and more than I just handle on a normal day basis. But this is important. This is a message important. So I think if you think it's important too, help me out. You can donate at orionmedia.tv. We're a nonprofit, and we appreciate that, helping you out as you help us out, or go to strangenormal.org, the podcast name. One more thing. You can also join us. This is everything we're going to cover in the next segment is a small portion of what we go through every week on Discord. We have a private Discord server that you can access by patreon.com/StrangeNormal. Okay, let's get into it tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about Daryl Anka. I mean, this is a guy that we go over quite a bit on this channel. We know that he has made a living out of going to different places and talking as an entity he calls ET named Bashar. And it's wild to think what is actually happening here. But I've pulled out different pieces of it that are quite eyebrow-raising. And they kind of help us understand where we are in history right now. And I don't like going over this stuff. Don't get me wrong. This is not something that I go over every day. But I use AI to pull things out so I don't have to listen to the entire thing. But because since it knows what I'm looking for and my stance on things, it's able to say, hey, this is something you should be alerted about. So I've got several automated alerts that tell me about different podcasts and what they're talking about by looking at transcriptions of things. But this is Daryl Anka again, and he's going to be talking to somebody about the character that he channels and spotlights on different things as they talk about first the Disclosure Day movie. And I think it's really going to bring out some stuff that we're going to talk about from the Bible. So hang in there. We're going to jump right in. But before we do, I want to show you this preview of what's coming up. This is pretty wild. This is from, her name is Diana Pasulka. She said something wild, just wild this week. And all this stuff we try to get to within the last couple of weeks. That's why we do it. And so I'm going to pull over that and play this clip real quick. Watch what she says here.
And he said to me, I love your work. And in fact, I work with the others. And a lot of us in my agency do. And so I'm here to listen to your talk.
I'm here to listen to your talk. Who are the others? We're going to get into that tonight. Why is it playing again? There's always something going on here. Let me go back to the main video here. Wow, that was fun. All right. This clip right here is what we're going to really be tackling tonight. It is fascinating. This is Daryl Anka talking to a co-host here on a podcast. Listen to what he says.
What I really, and I think you will appreciate this, one of the things I saw it so clearly, I was like, oh, I can't believe he's in the know, in the sense that he introduces, or he spotlights channeling in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. With Emily Blunt. And even though, again, it's not exactly how it went down, he also references the idea of the CIA mind control experiments and things like that with what, Colin Firth is doing. There's just a lot of little breadcrumbs in there and little hints in there that if you're familiar with the information to some degree, you start, oh, he got that, and yes, he's referring to that, and he's referring to this. So there's a lot of little things in there that I think that people that are not familiar with what's going on in UFO lore and disclosure lore, I think it just kind of went over their heads, and they feel like it just didn't make sense to them.
So what are we talking about here? Everyone's, for the first time, if you're first time here, you're like, why are we talking about UFOs? This is silly. I thought this was a prophecy channel. It is. We're talking about spiritualism. We're talking about understanding what is happening in today. And we're noticing that there's a very close connection between what the government is doing with trying to do with Christianity and tying it. There's wild ties. If you watch this entire program, you're going to see those wild ties in here. I'm going to bring out some quotes from Spirit of Prophecy. I'm going to bring out some biblical quotes out of this stuff. I'm going to pull some sources from outside as well. I mean, it is wild to see that spiritualism was very well seen and even prophesied back and during the prophets. But the problem was there was not the wording that we use today. How do I know that? Well, the last 2 episodes, live episodes that we did, I really iterate that out for probably half the episode. I decided I don't need to do it every single time. But I think it's important that you, if you haven't seen anything about this, you go back, watch those last 2 episodes where I really hammer this stuff out. There's also a whole program that we've done talking about this stuff. So I don't want to reiterate it again, but know that this is the first time that I've seen Daryl Anka, who channels I say channels because I'm Christian, but what he's doing is he thinks he's communicating or having an extraterrestrial communicate through him. This is channeling. This is demonic spirits channeling. And so this is the first time I've heard him actually use the word channeling. And I think that's interesting because that's not really a term that is used in ufology, but it more solidifies the idea that this is definitely a more spiritual idea of what's happening here. So that's the first time I've heard him say channeling. Yeah, channeling was used it was disclosed in Disclosure Day there. But listen to what he says next about people assuming that this is demonic. Wild stuff going on. Watch this.
The thing I find so fascinating is their reaction is always at first, it's the negative thing. It's the demonic thing instead of, why couldn't that be an angelic power? You know?
Right.
So the interesting thing is the people that are calling out all these demonic things are the ones, in a sense, who are steeped in the demonic fear. It's like they're the ones that are perpetuating the idea of the negative reality and the demonic thing, that the thing they're ascribing to demons is what their first reaction is, instead of saying, why couldn't this be something from God? Why couldn't it be a blessing? You know, they always go in the negative thing because they're steeped in fear, which I would think would be more, if, you know, demons did exist, would be more the hallmark of what the demons would be like.
Wow. Isn't that flipping the script? I mean, completely. I think it's really interesting what he's saying right here, because he's saying, look, all those Christians, they're going straight to the demonic. They assume everything's demonic, everything. If they don't understand it, it's demonic. Well, on the surface, that might look like that, but the studied Christian knows how to identify what is demonic and what is not. It has specific characteristics, and we know that by the end of this program, you're going to be able to identify that. So this is kind of just the teaser. I need you to know what these guys are thinking in the back of their head, so you're able to answer them as a Christian. That they think that, oh, it's demonic. All these things, all the Christians, all they think about is demons. So maybe they are demonic. Maybe they are the ones that are demonic. Really?
Would be inducing fear in people. So, you know, it's an ironic and paradoxical reaction that they don't seem to be capable of seeing within themselves when they react that way. And it's still going on. We're still talking about the idea. Some people in religious circles are saying, oh, the UFOs and the aliens are demons, you know?
Obviously.
And so it's like, again, why is that the first reaction? Why couldn't they be angelic beings or something else? That just, to me, illustrates and underscores their own fear-based belief.
I want you guys to think about this for a second. If you think that it's not demonic, if it's not, I'm going to not use that word. I'm going to say it's not fallen angels. There's two types of entities. There's the ones that believe and do righteousness, which are the good beings, the good messengers. Let's put it into a category, because that's what angel means. And there's the bad messengers, the ones that God created, both created. Angels are on both sides of this, both messengers. And they say, we've decided that we don't have to follow God and we don't have to follow his rules, and we can do whatever we want to do. We do what thou wilt, or is the whole of this satanic idea. So these things, which one is it? Which one is it, is what they're saying. How do you know which one it is? Well, it's easy to know. And we're going to get deeper into that tonight. But I want you to think about this for a second. When Ancient Aliens comes on TV, on the History Channel, when History Channel becomes the not History Channel after midnight, I think it's interesting that they call these things ancient astronauts, right? The ancient astronauts believe, or whatever it is they say. What kind of astronaut comes into your bedroom at night and tries to have sex with you and beats you up and lifts you off and takes you away? Have you ever heard of Neil Armstrong just deciding to go into someone's bedroom and do that? No, because astronauts don't do that. I mean, the logical fallacies in this is crazy, but that's not even using the Bible. I want to create a whole booklet just for the atheist using the logic to try to dismantle this. 'Cause I think we've made one for the church. We've made one for the Christian. I think it's time to make one for atheists as well. I think this is fascinating what we have going on here. But let's get back to this program. I want to make sure we stay on the script because I got a lot to show you tonight. Dale Anka, he calls these things, and this is where this is going. They call this thing racist. And so, do you want to be called racist if something starts showing up? Watch this.
The thing I find so fascinating is their reaction is always at first.
All right, next one.
And to some degree, I find calling an ET a demon to be somewhat racist. It's sort of the same thing that people did in the past when they called people of color black devils. I mean, it's just this whole fear-based thing of calling out something that you're not familiar with. Right. And putting it in a category that, can make you not have to face them or persecute them because you just don't want to deal with it. So, to me, at this point in modern history, calling an ET or something from a UFO a demonic force is an extremely racist reaction.
Then you're establishing that demons are.
All right, pause it right there for a second. I want to react to that. Let's think about this for a second. If I was taken by my own will and put into slavery, and then someone said that this demonic force that comes and rapes you at night is similar, it should be penalized the same as calling someone racist, I think I would be pretty offended. I think those two things, equating those two things, is offensive in itself. If you follow me, if you understand what I'm saying here, and if you understand where this is going as a society, press 1. I want to see you in the live chat. Make sure I understand that everyone understands what I'm seeing here is deeply offensive to say that this is equating this to racism. Anyway, then he goes on and makes another point.
Off planet as well. Then you're establishing that demons are off planet as well.
They're running around in space in spaceships. These demons.
Exactly.
It's just ridiculous.
Okay, so running around in a spaceship. This is the exact opposite, where it's not the Christians that are saying that the demons need a spaceship. It's that we're saying that the aliens, quote unquote, are actually pretending to be aliens because they are demons and they're on planet, so they don't need spaceships to get around. What you're seeing is a deception. I want to make sure that's absolutely clear on this. Anka, Hollywood has turned positive, and this is where it gets into very, very, very interesting territory, because he's going to show you several different movies that have come out and that they are absolutely pushing an agenda. Remember how all these movies of old used to be aliens are coming and everyone should be terrified of them? That's switched, whether you know it or not. I don't go to very many movies, so I haven't seen the 3 he's going to mention. He actually mentions another one in this podcast, but this next one, he says absolutely, look, it's all going positive now. All of Hollywood is pushing a positive narrative on extraterrestrial UFO stuff. Listen to what he says. Hopefully this is the right one.
Well, first of all, I think what's an interesting sign is that the last 3 major alien contact movies have all now been positive.
All right, pause it for a second. I've integrated the trailers into this clip, so you're going to see a short section of the trailer every time he talks about the movie, so we know what he's talking about.
You've got Arrival, which was positive.
Yeah, yes.
More objects have landed around the world.
This is one of 12. I'm never going to be able to speak their words.
Got 2 days. Figure something out.
I am human. It's their language. We need to make sure that they understand the difference between a weapon and a tool. Language is messy, and sometimes one can be both.
You have Project Hail Mary, which was positive.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful movie.
The sun is dying. You are the only scientist who might know what this is.
I put the not in astronaut. I've never done anything. I've never done a spacewalk. I can't even moonwalk. I'm Grace. I'm gonna call you Rocky. Thumbs up. No, that's thumbs down. You would do the thumbs up.
And now you have Disclosure Day, which ultimately is also a positive alien contact movie.
We're interrupting our coverage.
How will disclosure change us? I believe for the better. It will remind us of our capacity for empathy, and that there is something bigger out there than just ourselves.
What happened to us?
I used to say to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if all of this turned out to be true? I'm now thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful for people to know all of this is true?
So I think I'm seeing that trend going in that direction. But in terms of the technical approach to disclosure and to open contact, I do think that it's going to happen in phases to allow us to absorb and assimilate. You know, the ETs understand what we are, and they understand how we react, and they understand what our culture is about. They've been observing us for a long time. They get it. They're not going to do anything that is really totally disruptive. They're going to give us an option to interact with them, but they're not going to force us into anything because they understand it's going to take us a while to get used to the idea that we're not alone in the universe.
Is that the reason? Or is it that they have to obey the power of choice? God's given us choice, and there's a giant cosmic battle going on for ownership of this planet, these humans, us. Big things are happening behind the scenes, and it's only been 6,000 years. This is a big deal, but he has part of the story, but he is completely deceived by what is speaking through him.
So this is one of the reasons why I think disclosure and open contact is happening sooner than later, because they know, according to the cycles and the timing, that it's going to probably take us at least a decade or two to get used to the idea of the fact that we now have the option to interact with extraterrestrials and receive whatever benefits they're capable of giving to our society and absorbing all of that.
All right, I want to comment on that real quick. This is interesting. The Daryl Anka, however you want to say his name, he says that Hollywood has now a spin on this that is positive. He says that when you go and watch those trailers, I think it's fascinating that, yeah, it might be positive, but they always portray these aliens, quote unquote, as dumb. Have you noticed that? You don't have to fear them because they're stupid. They don't know whether or not a thumbs up or a thumbs down is correct, or we have to make sure they understand what the difference is between a weapon and a tool. I mean, if they are these all-knowing beings that have been around a long time, if we went to another planet, I mean, think of Star Trek. Just for a second, if you had no Bible in you at all, and you had to think just purely logical about this for a second, do you think Picard up there in whatever the Enterprise would be like, I don't know what those thunder sticks are that they're using down there. They must be a tool, like a shovel. I mean, how stupid. Okay, I'm going to keep going with this before I get myself in trouble here. This is, again, Daryl Anka. He believes he's channeling aliens, and I do believe that he's actually doing something because of the narrative that he knows about. We're going to get to that in a second here, but he's definitely got something deep going on with him. And he's going to say, hey, look, the children are going to be more receptive to this as the older generation dies off.
Once open contact occurs, then that new generation who will be taking over the world in another 2 decades will always have been exposed to the existence of extraterrestrials, and it won't be weird to them. So they'll be more open as the old generation dies out.
Okay, do you understand what's going on here? There will be open contact. It won't be with aliens. They might pretend they're going to be aliens, but I think it's fascinating that we see right now the got distracted by my switcheroo there on my screen. They're going to see that we're going to we're going to see that they're going to pretend to be extraterrestrial. This demonic entity wants to communicate with society again. Now, how do I know that? Well, I have spirit of prophecy to back it up. I have biblical deception verbiage in the Bible to back it up. And we have external sources, always third, beyond the Bible, like Roger Murnau that says, my satanic priest told me this was going to be a big deal. So, wow. So you got all these that are lining up. And by the way, what is that quote? Spirits, demon spirits will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies, coming to Earth to declare that there's going to be impending destruction of the planet unless we don't do something proper in order to avoid it. Okay. So there is going to be physical communication with it. Where is that in Spirit of Prophecy? It's all about the spiritualism. Two biggest things that happen in the time. Revelation 13, worship. Revelation 16, spiritualism. So this spiritualism that's going to happen is going to have a connection with the state of the dead. Understanding that we shouldn't communicate with this death stuff is pinnacle. We're going to cover that tonight too, because it's every week there's something new about this stuff that connects it with the Bible, and I think there's a reason for that. Okay, so here's the next thing that we have to cover. He says, "Look, all your secrets have to come out." Are there secrets? Yeah. There are. There's lots of secrets. In fact, I think that our administration has quite a bit of secrets. I'm not a political person, and so I'm able to say without a shadow of a doubt that there are problems in this administration and in other administrations that are not of the same tribe. I'm not a tribalism person, but he says, "Hey, look, your secrets need to come out." What kind of secrets are those? Well, let's look.
My channeling, when Bashar talks about 2026 being the year of disclosure, he's not just referring to UFO information. He's saying all your secrets have to start coming out. And that's kind of what we're seeing, right? Exposure of this and these files and all these hidden secrets that people have been harboring for so long are now being put out into the public so that we can see what's been going on and finally say, is this how we want to continue, or do we want to change and do something different? So this is the year of disclosure in all sense, on all different kinds of levels. That's why we're seeing so much chaos, because everything's coming out in the open. They're going to roll it out in phases so that we have time to get used to the idea.
All right, pause it right there just for a second, because we're on number 6 right now, and it auto played because it has a bug in it and they haven't fixed it yet, and it just auto plays. But what kind of stuff comes out? Well, I think that we're going to see a lot of things come out, and they want to issue this stuff out at a specific time. How do I know that? Well, I am pushing this video up. Hopefully this makes a little sense to you, because I just saw this just before we went live. This is why we were late going live. I thought this was a fascinating clip I saw appear on Facebook. Somebody knows about this Epstein stuff. And I think this is going to be used by spiritualism to show that they have been seeing and they have been watching and they have been keeping record of our wrongs for a long, long time, and they know everything. Watch what this guy says.
That evidence, we got a bunch of emails and stuff, and there was lots of redactions. They said they were only going to redact the victims, but they redacted way more than just the victims. They redacted like big names of like sheiks and oil executives and all.
Yes.
It's very interesting the people that they didn't redact and the people they did redact, if you really like read between the lines and look at it. But
of course,
like that's not the real evidence. The real evidence is on the hard drives, because there's survivors, there's girls that were there that testified that he had rooms as big as this room right now that were filled with servers and computers and monitors that were recording all that footage that he had, and not only on the island, but in New York, the Zora Ranch, everywhere.
On a plane, the plane was rigged and everywhere.
Where's all that footage?
I can't tell you.
Really?
Yeah.
Can I guess?
No, please don't. Not now. Don't guess now. So that's why I said the days.
Let me ask you this:
the day it will come out is important. It has to be the right time, the right day.
Let me ask you this. I'm sorry to put a legendary Mossad assassin on the hot seat. But if I was to guess, do you think I would guess right?
Probably. That's why we shouldn't talk about it right now.
All right.
All right.
That's all I needed to know.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Did you just see what happened here? So he's interviewing an alleged Mossad assassin, someone that works for Mossad. I think he says if we were to guess where this stuff is, we would guess right. And that's why we can't talk about it right now. Do you understand? Do you read between the lines? Am I the only one picking up on this stuff? This is really fascinating. I think that we're seeing something that's going to blow up in the future. But it's probably going to come out by its own way. Okay, so let's continue to see what they say next about this.
They're going to roll it out in phases so that we have time to get used to the idea of what it is they're capable of showing us, that in many cases is going to change the way we look at things, because they have the ability to demonstrate and prove certain things that we've been only speculating about in our society for a long time, because we have no real access to our history and certain other kinds of things. But they may have recordings of those things because they've been observing our planet for so long. It's like, you want to know if Atlantis existed? Here's a holographic recording of it. You want to see what the dinosaurs really looked like? Here's a holographic recording of it. And we're going, oh, wow, okay. All those questions can be answered because they've been around long enough to have observed us long enough to actually have proof of what those things really were.
Whoo-wee. All right. So there's a lot there. Deborah's asking in the chat, who is this guy? I just grabbed that clip seconds before we went live. I'm not sure. I haven't researched it yet, but it's on what is that? Not the Concrete Podcast. That was his old name, but don't remember the name of it now. I'll look it up. I'll put it in the show notes. But he's a regular podcaster that has this stuff on it. And I guess that's some Mossad assassin. But what I wanted to comment about was what they're talking about is basically, we understand this on this program to be the devil's plan. This is something that's going to happen in the future. This is spiritualism that is going to break out and want to make ties. They want to control the narrative, because what happened at the beginning of time in Genesis? You had the snake, right? Was the snake come out as a shining being of light? Did it come out as Satan? No, it came out and appeared as something that we love and that we want to know more from and that we would be curious about. Well, if this snake can start talking and all it had to do was eat fruit, imagine what can it do to me? The same thing. Scientists are like, man, if these aliens are so far advanced, they're able to travel between planets and through light space, imagine what they can do for us. Did you know that sin entered in this world so fast after communication was established? You don't want to communicate with this stuff, because as soon as communication is established, boom, we're there, folks. It's going to happen. And the Bible says that, because it's going to, in the last days, it'll happen quickly. Final events are going to happen quickly. And so, so much so that a new religion is even formed that they want to give. And this is that new religion. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Where's my clip? I don't have that clip of the slide I want to show you. Here it is. That's weird. Why is it way back there? Okay, this one right here. This always gets me. I'm gonna read this off because it's really small text if you're watching this on the phone. This is from Great Controversy 552. When they have been led to believe that the dead actually returned to communicate with them. I'm going to skip this part because we're going to go over this later. Go down about halfway through the page. It says, insinuate the most dangerous errors. In fact, the fact that they state some truths and are able to, at times, to foretell the future events, gives them statements, gives to their statements an appearance of reliability. And their false teachings are accepted by the multitudes as readily and believed as implicitly as if they were not they were the most sacred truths. Now think about that for a second, because what I'm saying right there is that the multitudes are going to see these things. This isn't going to be some apparition that happens in the back room of the White House. This is going to be multitudes of people that are going to see disclosure. They're going to see people appear and say, we're from a long ways away, right? So the law of God, this is the characteristics that are set aside in the new religion. The law of God is set aside. The spirit of grace is despised. The blood of the covenant is counted as an unholy thing. The spirits deny the deity of Christ and place even the Creator on a level with themselves. Thus, under the new disguise, the great rebel still carries on his warfare against God, begun in heaven and for nearly 6,000 years and continued upon earth. Now, a lot of you that have been watching this program for quite a while already have heard me say that many times. I've got other new quotes to this tonight that I'm going to show you. Really interesting stuff. Hang in there. But make sure I got all these clips in here, because I think one got out of order. I'm just going to play this real quick.
Bashara said this is one of the things they're going to give us as a gift in Open Contact is our complete history. Here's a recording of your complete history. Have fun. Take a look.
That will upend all religion. That will upend everything that we know.
Yes, and yes, but that doesn't mean that it won't reinforce other aspects, like spirituality.
So isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating? It will upend religion. Well, yeah, it's going to upend religion, and it's going to be a governmental push on a new type of religion. We're going to see. This fascinating stuff. Pause it. There we go. And they will create this new form of religion that'll be that they claim will be better and more spiritual, even communicating with the dead. Watch this. It's not the dead.
Yes, religion may go away in the form that it is in now in certain ways, because we won't necessarily need the trappings of it. But the core of it will never go away, because the core of it is our spiritual connection to the divine. And that, I think, the ETs will actually be capable of strengthening. And I think it will make Earth overall a more spiritual place and a more connected place, because they also may have the technology to actually be able to talk to spirits. And if we can actually talk to people that were alive and are now dead, and actually go, hey, we're still around, we're just in a different dimension. Well, what is that going to do? I mean, it's like, well, now I can talk to Uncle Fred, who's been dead for 10 years. Here he is, and we can have a conversation because the ETs brought us technology that will allow us to do that. Well, now I have a million questions for Uncle Fred. What's the afterlife really like? And all that kind of stuff. Well, here it is. This is the way it works. This is what it's all about. Now we don't need a middleman. We can talk to Uncle Fred, the dead guy, ourselves.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. The Bible has a lot to say about this stuff. I think that it's important to point out, though, if you're communicating with the dead, that's idolatry. You should be going to God for your questions. You shouldn't be going to someone that you think is dead. In fact, in the Old Testament, and it still applies today, you need to be whole Bible Christians, not just New Testament Christians. The dead know not anything. And you can prove that from the New Testament too. Was Lazarus thrilled to come back to earth? Was he like, oh man, I wish I could have stayed in heaven or Abraham's bosom or wherever you want to think your theology goes on this topic? No, he was like, all right, I'm back. No one was asking him what it was like to be dead, because it was like an instant. So and the whole out of the body is present with the Lord thing like that. Paul was saying, look, you're going to instantly see God, because when God comes back, all of a sudden you're going to see him again. That's that whole idea of what he was saying there. I wasn't saying that you are instantly with God. Nothing in that verse says that at all. But the Bible is very clear about communicating with the dead. It says right here, then Numbers 25, 1-3. Now Israel remained in Acacia Grove, and the people began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab. They invited the people to sacrifice of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel was joined to Baal Peor. They were worshiping with Baal Peor, and it had something to do with sacrificing to their gods. Well, they also believed that their gods were the dead. According to Psalms 106:28, they joined themselves also to Baal Peor and ate sacrifices made to the dead. So the dead were that were also their gods, and they wanted to communicate with them. Okay, well, what were the dead? Well, it says in whoops, I skipped it. Oh, did I put 2 of them in there?
Why would
I did put 2 in there? Well, if you want me to find it, I can find it. But it basically says in the New Testament, I think it's Corinthians, that the dead they were communicating with were actually demons. It says that. It says that the dead they were communicating with were actually demons. So if they are just demons, then we don't need to be communicating with them, because that would be very, very dangerous. But why are they doing this now? Why is this happening all of a sudden? Well, Daryl thinks he has an idea, but again, he's a little confused on this, so he tries to pull things out of thin air. This is what he says.
But the biggest question is, why are they doing it, and why are they doing this now? They've been watching us for hundreds of thousands of years at some.
Well, like you said, it does go in cycles, and there are indications that they were among us many thousands of years ago. All of our legends of the gods and all this kind of stuff that we ascribe that may actually have been representations of extraterrestrials. You know, with
like Stargate, the movie Stargate.
Yeah, basically that theory.
that theory. You remember Stargate? Stargate. They had SG-1. They had Atlantis. It starred Richard Dean Anderson. MacGyver. If you followed that, I was a big fan of MacGyver. And he has on that show, the idea is that this alien civilization came and they planted humans on this planet. And they came and they had to be, aliens came back, but they had to present themselves as something different, as Egyptian gods. These things right here. Have you seen these guys before? There goes my angel. So I think this is interesting because you have, what are these? If you know your Egyptian history, you know that this is Hathor, right? Put her closer there. And this is, according to the ancient history, this isn't for real life stuff, but this is Ra. See the Solaris above them? They always put this Solaris above to show that they are a spiritual being. Why? Because these giant round fireballs came up behind them, and so they had to show that they were a spiritual entity. This isn't a halo. This stupid halo that people think is in the Bible. There's no halos in the Bible. But these things are what they depicted themselves as in real life, and this is what
But the biggest question is, why are they doing it, and why are they doing this now?
We're going to get to that, but the reason why they're doing this now is because it's time. It's time for the end, and they want to physically be out and present to try to make war with the coming of the Son of Man. That's what Revelation 16 says. So, but this is what they depicted themselves as. So don't be surprised if you see something very similar happen. Chris Bledsoe saw this. He saw a bull standing beside a woman in a white dress, a little different than this, but this is how they depicted themselves. And she said, I have been represented by many things over many, many years. Even the Virgin Mary, he said. Chris Bledsoe, said. So why now? Why now? Well, we know as Christians why now, because we're nearing the end of Earth's history. And they're going to say that, oh, we're coming back because there's cycles. There's cycles, and we've just decided to come back. We're making our rounds through our kids in the universe, and we've come back, and we want to tell you guys you better straighten up. That's what they're going to tell us. Watch this.
In many cases, we may actually be genetically related to them. And it's like, what are the kids doing? Let's go check on the kids. And I make that analogy in jest, but also in all seriousness, because it's kind of like, you know what, folks, we're down here, a bunch of kids, and we're having all these tantrums, and it's kind of time for the adults to step in the room and say, cut it out. You need to grow up. So I think that's one of the things that we will experience in open contact is the adults are here now. You got to pay attention because you're kind of trashing your room, and we can't allow you to trash this place. This is an important school for souls, and we're not going to allow you to wreck it and ruin it. So you need to learn some things, and you need to remember them, because you've obviously forgotten.
So he thinks that they're coming back and they're going to tell people that, hey, look, we're kind of the adults, we're the smart people in the room. You guys got to shape up. That's kind of exactly what Roger Minot says. They're going to come back and lament that this whole planet is going to go to rot if you don't do something, right? Well, it's even deeper than that, because there's actually some. This is the new quote I found. Very interesting. This is from The Great Controversy, but it's from a compilation called a segment called Darkness of the Dawn. It says, the miracle-working power manifested through spiritualism will exert its influence against those who choose to obey God rather than man. Communication from the spirits will declare that God has sent them to convince the rejectors of Sunday of their error, affirming that the laws of the land should be obeyed as the law of God. They will lament the great wickedness in the world. Well, isn't that the same thing as Daryl just said? They will lament that you guys need to shape up. We're the adults in the room. Second, the testimony of the religious leaders that the degraded state of morals is caused by the desecration of Sunday. Great will be the indignation excited against all those who refuse to accept their testimony. Boy, we've gone through theory with this stuff for 150 years. We've gone through theory with the New Testament for 2,000 years. We've gone through theory with this stuff for 5,000 years. Or has it been 6,000? And just now, we're going to be thrown into the deep end. You got to be ready. Have your hearts prepared. Now is the time. Study your Bibles. This is a big deal. And we're seeing the beginning of all that stuff that's happening right now. Mark my words. This is something. What else do we have tonight? Lamenting great wickedness is what they were trying to do. Oh yeah. And if you want another tie to this stuff, do you remember that? I'm talking specifically to my church right now. We have some writings talking about the Alpha and the Omega apostasy, right? Do you remember the characteristics of it? This is super important that you understand what this is, because this is another tie to it. Listen for it as Daryl talks about this next.
So, even on that level, we're starting to see that everything may be one thing. Everything is connected. Consciousness is simply the idea that it's aware of itself. Bashar sort of used the analogy of a cake to sort of describe this. If you have a slice of cake, if I give you a slice of cake and you decide you want to analyze what's in it, and you say, well, I have analyzed it, and I found that there is egg in there and milk in there and flour in there and chocolate in there and what have you, sugar. Well, if you have a slice of cake and it has all those things, then that means the whole cake must also have had all those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're conscious, the whole must be conscious, because we're a slice of the whole. So we are conscious, it is conscious, everything is aware, and everything is made out of whatever that material is, whatever that consciousness is.
My. All right. Now I'm going to give you the answers to the final test here. I'm going to read it because I want to make sure I get it all right. I don't have a slide for it really yet. I think actually I do have a slide for the other stuff. Yeah. The following writings, these are new writings that I'm going to pull out here that are fascinating. But I'm going to say this. Pantheism says God is not a personal being who stands outside his creation. He is an impersonal essence, a consciousness, if you will, a frequency that pervades everything. Creation isn't something God made, it's something God is. So, in other words, God is in everything. So, anybody ever had Kellogg's cornflakes? You know where I'm going with this. In 1903, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, the most famous Adventist in the world at the time, published The Living Temple. Anybody ever read The Living Temple? This is a fascinating study. I hope you haven't, because I'm going to tell you what's in there. It's the teaching that God is a presence in everything. In other words, this is a quote from the book itself. It says, a tree maker in the tree, a flower maker in the flower. One of our founders, Ellen White, identifies it immediately, not as a quirky book, because it sounds kind of quirky, but it sounds kind of right. You know, God within us, that's a quote from the Bible, so it must be God within everything. No, that's not right at all. Ellen White identified it immediately, not as a quirky book, but as the opening move on the final deception. All right, let me pull up some quotes here. This is interesting. It says here, let me pause it so it doesn't skip it. In the Living Temple, the assertion is made that God is the flower in the leaf. The assertion is made that God is in the flower, in the leaf, in the sinner. But God does not live in the sinner. And she says, they delighted in the beautiful representation. God in the flower, God in the leaf, God in the trees. But if God be in these things, why not worship them? Worship Mother Nature. Isn't that fascinating? Exactly what we're seeing in this pantheism stuff. This is from Ministry of Healing, page 428. The theory that God is an essence pervading all nature is received by many who profess to believe in scriptures. But however beautifully clothed, this theory is a most dangerous deception. The Ministry of Healing, page 428. In a chapter, let me move on to the next one. Danger in speculative knowledge, and if God is an essence pervading all nature, then he dwells in all men. And in order to ascertain holiness, man has only to develop the power within him. See, that's not right. And so she's saying that this is what people would think if they read that stuff, that all you have to do is to develop the power within you. You have God within you. And we've heard that before. And that's from what? The devil himself, from the Garden of Eden. You can be as gods, knowing good and evil. All right, what else does it say here? This is from Ministry of Healing and First Selected Messages. The theories, and specifically talking about Kellogg and his book, followed to their logical conclusions, sweep away the whole Christian economy. They do away with the necessity for atonement and make man his own savior. She continues, in the book Living Temple, there is presented the alpha of the deadly heresies. The omega will follow and will be received by those who are not willing to heed the warning God has given. All right, it's not the last one. This is the next quote. Living Temple contains the alpha of these theories. I knew that the omega would follow in a little while, and I trembled for our people. Be not deceived. Many will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. We have now before us the alpha of this danger. The omega will be of a most startling nature. Wow, 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 wow. So I think it's interesting that we're seeing this exact same religion from the UFO community, and they're pushing this idea already into culture, into the evangelists, or I say the atheists, the ones who follow this stuff and say, "Hey, I wish we could just meet some aliens so we can get something that we can tangibly hold and our eyes can see, and we don't." Essentially, they can be a doubting Thomas and still believe on this stuff. Wow, this is big. I got one more here. Living Temple contains the alpha. Oh, I already saw that one. Okay. I guess I didn't flip over. Well, there it is if you Haven't seen it. Pause that. Cut back. So David Enka, this is the last clip I have of him. He said a lot of our ancient texts are talking about these things, and he might be right, but they're not aliens.
I just literally had a mystic from India in the studio the other day, and we were talking about disclosure because I wanted to get his point of view about it.
Sure.
His point of view, you know, he was very frank about it. He's like, they're our family. They are they're who we are. It's like they're family. They're like old relatives coming in.
Yeah.
But I found it very interesting coming from a Indian yogi, a master, saying these things. I was just finding it fascinating. But then as you do more research, you realize the Bhagavad Gita there's aliens all in that thing everywhere.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of our ancient texts are actually talking about extraterrestrials. We've just been calling them gods, you know?
Oh man, how confused. So what he's saying is, what he should be saying is, all our ancient texts have been talking about God and Satan, God and devils, God and the minions of darkness. And these things claim to be aliens because that's how they can deceive people of our day. But he's got it completely on the other way around. So how do we know this would happen? Well, this is really interesting to me because if you watch this channel before, you know that I've tied these things together quite well. In the Great Controversy, it says in the days of the Hebrews, there was a class of people who claimed, as do the spiritualists of the day, to hold communion with the dead. But the familiar spirits, as these visitants from other worlds, were called. So was Daryl right? Well, essentially, he says, yeah, they've been here quite a while, and they've done this before, and our ancient books are all filled with this stuff, but they're not aliens. They're visitants from other worlds that they were calling themselves, as these visitants from other worlds were called. And will they do this again? Yeah, absolutely, they will do this again. It says that they, in the future, this quote says, when they have been led to believe the dead actually return to communicate with them, Satan causes those who appear to go into the graves unprepared. They claim to be happy in heaven, even occupy exalted positions there, and thus the error is widely taught that there is no difference between the righteous and the wicked. The pretended, what are they pretending to be again? The pretended visitants from the world of the spirits sometimes utter cautions and warnings which prove to be correct. Then as confidence is gained...
Is open contact going to be a...
Then as confidence is gained, they present doctrines that directly undermine faith in the scriptures. So what are they doing? Well, they're pretending to be visitants from the world of the spirits. So is there another realm? We don't know. Maybe they're just... we see through a glass darkly right now. We don't exactly know how it works, how these things can be invisible, but in the same space as we, how they can be watching us and taking note of what we're doing and even manipulate our mind. I don't understand the whole idea of a realm. Maybe a realm means something different than we understand it. Maybe it's not a separate room where you go and you can occupy the same territory as we are, but maybe it's just being hidden. Maybe that's the realm that's being talked about. Maybe it's something similar to what sci-fi has, where you're on a different vibration. I don't even want to say that word. That's such a weird thing. I don't even want to connect those dots. But I think it's fascinating that there is something different here, and it's spiritual. But they pretend to be from the world of the spirits, meaning they are pretending to be extraterrestrial. That's a great controversy. So that's wild to me. Continuing on with my notes here, they will claim to be as the same in our days. So will this be a new spiritual awakening? I think so. We're going to see a new spiritual awakening out of this. This is going to be a new revival. And if you know, this is a characteristic that I bring out that's going to be a connection that shows that this is absolutely what we've been talking about forever as a church. Watch.
Is open contact going to be a catalyst for the greatest spiritual awakening humanity has ever had?
New revival.
So. Yeah.
Yes. Well, absolutely, because again, beings that are as advanced as some of these ETs appear to be are operating on an energy frequency level that is very similar to spirit. In fact, I think that's one of the things that causes us a little trepidation when we encounter them, is we pick up on this vibration they're giving off, this energy frequency they're giving off, that is so close to the idea of the frequency of spirit, of non-physical reality, that when exposed to that frequency, our primitive brain interprets that as if we're about to die.
There we go with the state of the dead thing again, trying to connect this with the fact that we can somehow see the dead and communicate with them. And man, if it was true that you just immediately go be with God, boy, I would wish to die every day. That's definitely not what God wants. And I'm not talking about the kind of death that is dangerous for our salvation. I'm talking about just simply saying, I am tired of being here. You know, I'm reminded, if you read just the first testimonies for the church, it talks about what happened at the very beginning, what happened to Ellen White, and how she almost died when she was very young. She said, it was a sin for me to wish to die. I think that we all must wish to remain and help God as much as possible in this world. It's so important. And I'm not saying if you know somebody, you need to berate them over the head and tell them they need to wish to be alive. But I'm telling you, if you yourself are having severe trouble with thinking that this world is complex and you don't want to continue, know that there is hope. There is continuous hope in Jesus Christ. I'm going to tell you some practical things right now that help me. I've talked to many people that are depressed, and this doesn't always work for everybody, but I know that it does work for some. Go outside, get some exercise, get some sunlight, get your water, and get your rest. Sometimes the simplest things are the things that help the most. I'm not going to say it helps for everybody. Some people have severe imbalances. Some people do need some help. But for a majority of us that are feeling like this day is just not it, usually it comes down to one of those 4 or 5 things. Have a purpose is another thing. Have a purpose in your life. And this isn't Dr. Phil, although Dr. Phil is now an alien specialist now too, so I guess I can be Dr. Phil. But I think that it's important to live the health laws first. Don't eat chips all day. Get some good food that makes good blood. That's what I think about every time I go out to eat, or I go to the grocery store. I look at the things I have in my hand that I'm putting in my cart, and I say, is this going to make good blood? And for some reason, every single time I say that, it really decides what's good and what's bad out of my cart. What is this going to make good blood? Ask yourself that time every time you're at the grocery store. It makes a difference on what you're eating. Okay, again, this is not medical advice. I'm not a medical doctor. Take what I say at your own risk, but I think what I say have principles of life that will help you quite a bit. I'm not talking to anybody specific. Please don't email me thinking I'm talking to you. Let's move on. That was unscripted thought. Let's move on to Diana Pasulka for a moment. Diana Pasulka is a religion professor we talk about quite a bit on this channel. She had a recent podcast where she talked about her new book, which it's interesting. It's a new book. It's interesting. I haven't read it yet, but I've been told by several people it doesn't contain a lot about what she calls the others. This is that clip that I showed at the very beginning, but it has some interesting things in it, but it's more philosophical. But what she did say about it was fascinating. And so let's listen to what she says.
This is not something an academic wants to come out and talk about because it sounds very ridiculous. But I think it's pretty accurate to say that people are having these experiences today, these experiences look similar in terms of the pattern matches with apparitions of the Virgin Mary and with angel contact events similar to those described by Teresa of Avila. Are they the same thing? Most likely not. Could they be a modern form of a new religion? Absolutely. And they are.
A modern form of a new religion. Well, that's kind of why she wrote her book. It says right here.
The first book I wrote about this is American Cosmic. At the end of that, I recognized that there was going to be a government disclosure of this topic. And I thought, wow, that's really going to, supercharge this religion. Because when you have a government backing a religion, that's big, right? So that was going to be, and so that's how I understood this topic. The book came out and then disclosure started.
A government-formed religion. Isn't that interesting? Government will push, how she's framing this, the government will push this new religion, she says. This is fascinating. I don't think she has any super knowledge in this stuff, but I super government background, I mean. But I think it's interesting that she uses these words as a knowledge. All right, play this last clip of her.
Your new book is called The Others. Can you tell us about the title? And when you say the others, what are you referring to?
Okay, so the others of the title of my book actually refers to an experience I had when I went to a conference, and that was a conference on technology and Catholicism. And while I was there, a man from a government agency showed up, and he was a very credible, legitimate member of this government agency. And he said to me, I love your work. And in fact, I work with the others. And a lot of us in my agency do. And so I'm here to listen to your talk. And so I wrote about this in the book, and that my editor, Joel, who you know, really loved this part. And he said, why don't we call the book The Others? So The Others is a term that encompasses a reference to intelligent non-human beings, whether they're angels or whether they're modern day reports of UFOs, which I talk about in almost all of my books.
So it raises the question, is there factions of a government, of departments in the government that are actually communicating with these things? Well, what is that? Well, that's being a medium. Is essentially what that is. And we know that there are sections that there's declassified paperwork that shows that they were trying to remote view stuff, and that they were taking psychics out and trying to talk to these things. And so is it happening today? Chances are it is. And she says, oh, we talk to these things, the others, on a regular basis. How is that? How is that? It makes me a little bit uncomfortable that our government is speaking to the others. The others. And listen to what she says about how the government talks about the others.
I think the most important consequence of disclosure today is that you do have an authoritative body, which is the U.S. government, coming out and saying, we are not alone in the universe. And possibly there are things, and the government gets pretty specific sometimes, and it does say there are things we think they're supernatural, we're not sure what they are. Like, they even use the term paranormal, okay? So this is stated, interdimensional, right? These kinds of things. That's a religious viewpoint. So it's basically discarding the old, completely positivistic, materialist assumptions that, we live in this world. There's nothing beyond what we, can see and measure with our instruments and so forth. Well, there is. That's what the government is saying. And what that does is it elevates the assumptions of communities of practitioners, of religious practitioners.
It elevates the what? We're going to talk about community in a second. But I think she says that government uses these terms, paranormal, interdimensional, and that's the that's discarding the materialistic assumptions and raising up the religious practitioners. You know, I see that idea pervasive in government. As I went there to Washington, D.C., I talked to Eric Burleson, and I was trying to think of some questions because I didn't have anything question related to ask him. I didn't think I'd be pulled into his office to talk about this stuff, but he was very curious about my ideas on this since I wrote this book and I was handing this book out to them. By the way, you can get this at orionmedia.tv or strangenormal.org. Go to the store. It's the new store. Hopefully, won't it's free. It's just free shipping, free book. Can't go wrong with that. And I think it's interesting that Eric Burleson, when he said, "Do you have any more questions for me?" the question I thought of was, "Where do you think this is going?" You know, after explaining all this stuff about Chris Bledsoe and about the state of the dead and all this stuff I've talked to him about, he said, you know, if it's demonic, it's demonic. But if it gets more people talking about God, I think it's a good thing. It's essentially what she's saying here. Government uses the terms paranormal interdimensional, and that's it discards the materialistic assumptions, but raises the religious practitioners. In other words, it bolsters the idea that religion, there is a religious life, and that's what we need. That's what the government says. We need more religion. No, we need the correct religion, and we need you not to force it down anybody's throats, because that's what Revelation 13 says is going to happen. Off my soapbox for a second. Let's talk about Whitley Strieber. Dreamland. Who is Whitley Strieber? Well, I think it's interesting. Anybody remember Art Bell? I remember as a child in elementary school being up way too late with a little boombox that I had fixed on my bed, listening to Coast to Coast AM. I mean, it was like wild. I didn't believe anything that was on there, but it was like, this is like listening to pirate radio, because it was like stuff that nobody would even fathom is real. But they're talking about it for 4 hours from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. on the radio. Coast to Coast AM. Well, there was another program I think called Dreamland. I might be getting that wrong. Maybe it was the same program, but it was also done by Art Bell. Art Bell is I don't think he's no longer with us, but it's now done by Whitley Strieber. Whitley Strieber came and I think in the 80s came up with a book called Communion. Communion sold millions and millions of copies. I actually looked it up to try to figure out how many copies it was sold, but he doesn't disclose it, but it's millions and millions. So he's a multimillionaire because I'm sure this, selling this thing. But he says in the book something bad happened to him. And I haven't read the book. Someone probably has read the book. I haven't read it. No, I don't really care to right now, because I can kind of get the gist of what happened to him from some of the sound bites, and I'll show you tonight. And I've just got a few more clips for you, but I think these are some of the most important ones. So please hang around. This is an interview that he does with a guy named Charles Upton. Charles Upton is a Muslim. He doesn't look like a typical Muslim, but when he talks, he believes in the jinn, and the jinn he believes are related to this whole alien thing. But that's not the main point. The main point is that he talks and he knows a little bit about Aleister Crowley, and he gets Whitley Strieber to talk about his experience with what happened with this whole thing. More importantly, what Whitley Strieber actually says about Jesus at the end. So I'm going to show you these three clips. Watch this.
Aleister Crowley was doing something called, what was it, the Amalantra workings, and he supposedly channeled an entity that he called Lamb, which looks kind of like, it has a very large head. It looks sort of like a gray, and people have remarked that this is the first image of the gray that appeared to us that was widely and wildly popularized by the cover of your book, Communion.
Yes.
After Communion, that's the way people saw UFO aliens. Before, they were little green men with antennae,
Right.
And now suddenly, that's the way they appeared to people. Maybe they did before, but I'm just saying, so anyway, one of his students, or who followed his methods, unclear as to whether he ever had contact with Aleister Crowley. But one or two of his students were Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, who founded Scientology. They were part of the Thelema Lodge of the Crowleyite religion in LA. And now Jack Parsons, Jack Parsons is the central indication, not enough to prove, but enough to raise a great deal of suspicion. When the theory of essentially a demonic pact between elements of the military industrial intelligence complex and UFO aliens who in this rendition would be considered to be demonic entities, that's when that possibility first raised its head. Now, Parsons was a rocket scientist. He would do pagan rituals at his rocket launchings. He said that his purpose in life was to destroy Christianity. But he went on to co-found the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the Aerojet Corporation. And he was he was adopted as, intimately enough by the powers that be to have a crater named after him on the dark side of the moon. So here
it's
we
appropriate it would be on the dark side.
Well, yeah, I mean, I call it the dark side. People say, no, it's not the dark side. It's just the the other side. Well, I look at it as the dark side, and but here we have a vector coming right out of Satanism, or right out of black magic, directly into today's technology. Wham, like this. There was a video I saw. I don't know, but still on YouTube, but. It was a film that Jack Parsons was filmed in some, some venue, some auditorium where he was demonstrating how he invoked demons to an audience. You can hear the audience in the background. And he was using something like an electronic Ouija board, which is what I call it. I don't know exactly how it worked, but as we know, but that's what it appeared to be. And here was Parsons saying, "Okay, here's how we invoke demons," and he said that flat out.
All right, so you understand what's going on here, and how he's explaining that lamb is what's represented on the front of Whitney Strieber's book Communion, and he talks a little bit about it. But Charles, who is actually this old man named Charles, he's the what's the religion? Is Islam, Muslim? I forget what I said he was, but he's the guy who believes in the jinn as being this thing. But he's also the guest, and the guest he acts like the host of it, because Whitney Strieber's running the Dreamland program right now, the radio show, and he says. He says, let me ask you a question, Whitney. Are you still communicating with these things? What does Whitney say? Hopefully this is the right clip. If not, this is the one that Whitney gives his testimony about what happened to him.
If you just look at the entire phenomenology of UFO aliens, they don't act like astronauts. Astronauts don't walk through your wall in your bedroom at night and and have sex with you and then lift you out of your body and carry you through the wall up into the sky to their spacecraft. This is not what you don't expect this from Neil Armstrong, for example. They're a different order of being. But if we will accept their power to definitely completely materialize on a temporary basis and sometimes on a virtually permanent basis, then any technology that seems to have come from them is explained by that fact.
All right, pause right there for a second. This isn't the clip, but do you kind of get the idea that he's explaining that this is definitely not aliens, Whitley, even though you're talking about it. Maybe you've talked about it a little bit, and I think he's getting through to him, because Whitley actually says, "This is what happened to me, and this is what I believe now." This is what he says.
Well, I'm in my case, I'm interested in living for the good, and I'm very, very devoted to that. That's my whole life. I mean, I think about it every moment and every day. This is
Well,
my
good.
journey.
I mean, but I mean, are you still interacting with these beings?
That's an interesting question, because interacting with them is a very complicated. I can't answer that question directly.
Yeah.
Suffice to say that I know better what I'm doing now than I did in the past.
Yeah, yeah. Because I want to say, your experience,
Yeah, he is.
sort of, okay, I was going to ask this question. This is another awkward thing, but as I understand it, these beings announce themselves to you with an act of serious abuse. In other words, rape.
Yes, they did. They raped.
Yeah, you were sodomized by them, and you're still experiencing physical effects from that years later.
Right this moment.
Right. Okay. So they made it pretty clear how they feel about the human race. They despise us. Right? Yeah. Now, but you've also had amazing experiences, that few human beings have had since then. If the whole deal had been presented to you, if they'd given you a sample of their wares and said, look what we can do for you, you can travel through all these other dimensions, you can learn all this and these amazing experiences. And all we ask is that we get to sodomize you so hard that you'll be injured for the rest of your life. But still, that's all you have to pay, and then you'll get this wonderful stuff. If they'd given you the whole deal instead of just announcing themselves in a way that you couldn't protect yourself from, would you have taken that deal? Would you have said, well, it's hard, it's a hard one I have to go through, but it's opened me to higher things?
Well, listen, I am aware of somebody very important in my life who did not take that deal.
Yeah.
Who's that? Who didn't take that deal, folks? Think about this for a second, because he's thinking about this. I can see it on his face. He's like, where's he going with this? Charles Upton, who's the guy on the screen right now, is saying, well, who didn't take that deal? Whitney Strieber's about to say Jesus Christ.
Jesus. And I'm not so sure I would not have thought of that.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Look at all this wonderful stuff, and right.
Well, I mean, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. I think Jack Parsons took the deal.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was after the deal. I mean, that's what he wanted.
He wanted the deal, and that the whole of our journey and in space science and so forth starts there, and that must not be forgotten, because we've got to, if we are going to end up free in this cosmos, to be truly human, we have to understand that from that moment with Jack Parsons to AI, to what is coming beyond AI, is a very, very dangerous journey. I'm not saying, and it's important that people understand this, it's all demonic. But I am saying that we need to find our own independent place that is human only and belongs to us.
Yes.
And you have to start that by devoting yourself deeply, completely to the good, to the work of God.
Wow. From Whitley Strieber. Now, I'm not going to just lie to you and say that he is got everything right. I think Whitley Strieber believes that any religion will get you to heaven, and that we must all come together as a ecumenical movement, which is definitely not what the Bible says. We need to be pressed together in truth, absolutely, but there will be a time when there will be a serious separation between Christians, and not everywhere will get you to the right place, because there's some churches that will definitely go down the wrong path. We need to be very careful of that. But he's got some errors. But I think what he said is, at least right there, is correct. We have to press together. We have to be close to Christ. We have to be. We see that Jesus Christ push that stuff away. And he, looking to him, he can be our overcomer. And so if you want to be that overcomer today, if you want to bring this and realize where this is all going, I encourage you, go get this book. I just sent out loads and loads and loads of them this week. If you haven't, if you put one like 5 weeks ago and I haven't gotten to it, it's because we were back ordered. But we have lots in now. You should be getting it this week. And if you haven't gotten or haven't ordered in the last 6 weeks, then please do go to orionmedia.tv, strangenormal.org, go to the store, and get this booklet. Get a few of them. Share it. Maybe your church wants some to put in the rack because it's a very important booklet. And if you are going to the church, I would recommend to get this one. This is for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It really has a lot of quotes, a lot of them that I've presented tonight. And I realize I do a lot of white quotes in here because I think a lot of us have read the entire Bible. And I want to show you some of the quotes where you haven't seen. We know the quotes from the Bible, but the more interesting stuff is the stuff that maybe you haven't read yet. Other shows, we just do purely from the Bible. And so if that's something that you're interested in, continue searching. This is pure Bible, and this is Bible and Spirit of Prophecy. And let's pray. Let's close up. Father God, thank you so much for giving us time to go over this important topic. There's so much happening here, and this was just this week or in the last couple of weeks we showed these clips of people actually what's talking about currently in spiritualism. It's coming, and just as you said it was, we know by faith that we will walk with you. So continue guiding us and directing us. Keep us healthy. Keep us wise to the enemy's attacks. Help us to bring many to your kingdom. As you who started a good thing will finish it in us. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. My name is Bradley. This has been Pure Strangeness, Absolute Normalcy. We'll see you next time.
You're watching Strange Normal, where the truth is the truth.